are proud, the Aravind Eye Care System is proud and privileged to confer the Dr. G. Venkataswamy Endowment Award for the year 2019 on Dr. William B. Stewart in appreciation of his contribution towards the development and expansion of the Department of Orbit and Oculoplasty at Aravind Eye Care System and the world at large. May I invite you on stage, sir? May I request the President of the Goval Trust, Mr. G. Srinivasan, Professor Dr. Namperumal Swami, sir, Chairman Emeritus, and Chairman Dr. R.D. Ravindran, sir, to be on stage.
Is not going to believe that I could be speechless, but I'm pretty close to speechless. I'm deeply grateful for the beautiful introduction, probably only half of which is true, but I don't know which half. So I'm really humbled to be in front of this group and to have even a small contribution to the work of the Aravind Eye Care System in the world. And it truly is work of the world. Dr. V is a person that I can actually use the word loved on. And I think he's probably the only person on the planet who has been visiting professor at distinguished universities in the different services of medicine, business, and divinity. This is not easy. And he has created a legacy far more than meets the eye. The purpose of his life and the meaning of his existence remain clearly evident in his healing legacy, where his work and his seamlessly integrated deep spiritual practice are part of his compassionate service to the secular world. Like Gandhi, his work and his life are his message. My intention with this oration is to share with you some of Dr. V's spiritual side through his direct quotes and through our personal experience with his teachings. The image to initiate this conversation about spirituality and its role in health and in healing, I'd like you all to appreciate this powerful image of an iceberg. The gift of sight allows us to see the tip of the iceberg. But we don't see what's not visible, which is that portion of the iceberg that's underwater and not susceptible to our physical senses. The world visible to our bodily senses is only a small fraction of the size of the numinous, unseen, transcendent world, metaphorically demonstrated by the iceberg portion that's underwater. So we see the little triangular piece at the top on our physical senses, but the piece below the surface, the unseen piece, is where spirit, fate, destiny, and the divine forces which are unseen but tangible originate, reside, and source our lives in the physical seeing portion of the worlds as humans that we inhabit. My wife Susie and I are grateful that these unseen forces have allowed and supported our orbits intersecting with the orbits of the Aravind family and the Aravind Eye Care System. The application of the spiritual aspects of health and healing lead to living a full, purposeful, meaningful, and joyful life. In association with Dr. V's contributions, his global influence and battle to alleviate needless blindness needs translation oftentimes to our daily lives. This translational application, Susie and I have learned from a cultural anthropologist by the name of Angeles Arian, whose work complements the work of the Aravind Eye Care System. Her approach to spirituality in the field of healthcare has helped us ground our appreciation of the impact of spirit on our lives in the physical world. Angela spoke of walking the spiritual path, but being sure to wear practical shoes. And we would like to share her experience in combination with Dr. Venkataswamy's experience. And we're extremely grateful that both of us are here together and for the incredible work that the visionary in Dr. V and the manifestors of the foundation of the visionary founders of the Aravind Hospitals and Aravind Eye Care System. Could I have the next one, please? I don't have the incredible work that these founders forwarded have fostered compassion, generosity, kindness, understanding, respect for the weakest, most in need, and to whomever appeared at their healing gate. They are to be congratulated and honored, as should the present generation of leaders and all of you presently carrying on the holy work of the Aravind Eye Care System throughout India and the world. Local actions, which is where you begin and where most action that has the potential of rippling through the world, has powerful, powerful effects, and the growth and impact of the Aravind Eye Care System proves that. This group of vagabonds, all of whom are here today, are photographed on their arrival at the Madurai airport in 1983, where we were picked up by a motor scooter and a Volkswagen bus. However, we had surgical skills, open hearts and minds, and thanks to the unseen forces, Dr. David Vastine and I had met in 1969, most of you weren't born then, in the Department of Surgery at the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center. And when I walked into the room where all the new residents were being welcomed and glanced across that room, the eyes of Dr. David Vastine and I connected, boom, and we became close friends, and the senior residents on the general surgery service at that time never wanted us to come together as their junior residents because we gave them so much grief. And I think in some ways we continue to play that role in our medical work. Thereafter, Dr. Vastine had the good fortune of coming to India as part of a vitamin A nutrition project where he met Dr. Venkataswamy, and then further good luck, while he was in training at the Illinois Eye and Ear Infirmary, Drs. Nam and Dr. Nacher met Dr. Vastine and created a fast friendship that persists to this day. So after, in the late 70s, a great deal was happening. This group also contained my wife, Susie. And I feel that this award that I'm standing up to accept is a joint venture and part of our shared life's journey. Susie and I have been married over 50 years, and we were never really sure how long that relationship was going to last. So we decided we would have an option to renew every 2 years. But now in our elderdom, we can't remember if we were supposed to renew on the even or the odd years. So we continue to stay together and have been fortunate to have participated in the raising of 2 wonderful sons. We have 2 beautiful daughters by marriage and 5, I think it's still 5, lovely grandchildren. So I see this as a joint venture, and as such, I want to acknowledge our heartfelt and soulful appreciation of the entire Aravind team. My capacity for alliteration, surgery, service, and soul, medicine, mastery, meaning, and mystery, papers that I've written, talks that I've given, fit beautifully with Susie's capacity, generosity of spirit, and graceful grounding of the concepts and principles that I may bring forward. So Susie, I'm looking forward to another 50 years of our joint venture, and know we will only get wiser and more compassionate as time goes by. Another thank you is warranted for Dr. Usha Kim, whose work and accomplishments have totally eclipsed anything I may or may not have accomplished in my career. And that's the greatest compliment that can be paid to a teacher or a mentor, is to have their student exceed what they have done. And I am deeply grateful for her gifts and talents, which are to be admired. And thanks also have to go out for 2 people who are not here, but whose years of advice and guidance, as well as their admirable accomplishments in the support of the Aravind Eye Care System, have contributed so much to our capacity and ability to be here with you tonight. And that's Pavi Krishna Mehta, the lead author of Infinite Vision, and Suzanne Gilbert, who for years has been a part of moving the battle against needless blindness forward, and through her work with the Seva Foundation and other ophthalmic organizations. So our story really begins in the early days of Aravind, but I'm not going to review the numbers as spectacularly as they have changed from 1983, when we were first here, to the present time. When we first got here in the early 80s, the outpatient visits per year were about 50,000. So in this last year, that 4.4 million outpatient visits looks pretty impressive, and I know you all haven't been loafing. The numbers speak for themselves, but tonight I really want to speak, rather than about the data and the numbers, about the spiritual aspects that selfless service and soul force of Dr. Venkataswamy has created in this setting and around the world, recognizing that everything that really counts cannot be counted. So I want to make a couple comments about our relationship with Dr. Venkataswamy. In age, we're separated by at least a generation. By geography, we're at least half a world away, and yet the influence has been life-changing. In 1943, I was born. This was at a time when Dr. V was at the age of 25 and completing medical school. In 1976, when Dr. V faced mandatory retirement at 50 years of age, I was entering my fellowship in oculoplastic and orbital surgery. When we made our first trip to India in 1983, Dr. V was 65 years old. He had integrated his deep spiritual practice and service with the challenge of his own illness and lived a life of health and healing, purpose and meaning, and certainly significance. So our transformational story had its beginnings in 1983 here, when a young, well-trained surgeon full of himself and full of desire to serve was humbled by the volume and quality of work being done here in Madurai, deeply moved by the compassion demonstrated and the highly skilled surgeons with whom I worked. Furthermore, I was inspired by the joy of the staff and of the physicians who spent long hours taking care of their patients and still had time to visit with, entertain, and mentor their visitors from afar. And what happened to Susie and I, what we experienced, I think, is best summarized by a poem by a Spanish poet by the name of Juan Ramón Jiménez. My boat struck something deep. Nothing happened. Sound, silence, waves. Nothing happened, or perhaps everything happened, and I am sitting in the middle of my new life. You all appreciate that any change path, any spiritual path, does not happen overnight. And I can't say that our transformation was world-changing, but I can say that it changed the way we saw the world. And that has influenced us since that day as we have grown in our own spiritual consciousness. Dr. V is a bridge between the scientific and the spiritual, between East and West, between those with access to care and those without. His accomplishments and guiding principles bridge medicine, mastery, meaning, and mystery. Like Gandhi, Dr. V's genius laid in bridging their depth of spirituality with tangible social change and healing. Our challenge, your challenge, is how can we carry the spiritual secret sauce that Dr. V manufactured for us in the coming years through the Aravind Eye Care System. Will it change? Of course. Will it get stronger? Of course. Will it be different? Yes. Will it be the same? In some ways, yes, it will. That San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge in 2005 brought Dr. V, Dr. Ravi, his wife Kanuma, to San Francisco to be honored as a pioneer in the art, science, and soul of healing. Joining us that night were many ophthalmologic dignitaries, and Dr. V was a great showman, and Dr. Ravi translated for him to us with great skill and dexterity. And Dr. V always wondered, because not only did we honor a medical person with this award, but we honored one of our very generous donors who recently died at the age of 102. And Dr. V always wanted to know, who was that lady on my arm? That old lady on my arm. Dr. V's influence in the neighborhood has led to my work with the Institute for Health and Healing, the work of the Pacific Vision Foundation and the Eye Institute that's in the process of being created, inspired by Aravind's work in the world, and via Pavi's wonderful marriage to Viral Mehta, who, along with his brother Nipun Mehta, created Service Space 20 years ago as well, based on the values of Gandhi and doing no fundraising. They perform selfless service with an entirely volunteer group, doing small acts of individual kindness and generosity, and they trust in the ripple effect. And you all know what that is, where you drop a stone in the water and the ripples go out and out and out, far past the time you did it, and in a far greater community than you anticipated. And all that work is done within the boundaries of the Aravind Eye Care System's influence. India has been called the spiritual mother of the world, and I think that's true. Spirituality differs from religion, but there are some overlap. And I'd like to define a little bit about spirituality, because spirituality is based on, one's personal spirituality is based on direct personal experience of the non-physical, unseen, divine mystery. Metaphorically, that we called the iceberg effect here. Spiritual practice are activities such as contemplation, meditation, prayer, study, time in nature, selfless service fostered by compassion, and recognizing the interconnection that we all share with each other and with our planet. In Dr. V's case, this was enhanced by his own illness and his own appreciation of the suffering of others. The ultimate aim of spiritual practices is to connect to our true, authentic self and to our soul, as opposed to our ego. Thank you very much, madam. The goal of these practices ultimately is called awakening, enlightenment, or nirvana. Don't count on any of that occurring early in your spiritual practice. These are not short course races or overnight changes. They take a lifetime, and often even then, we don't necessarily arrive where we may have intended. The soul is the divine spark within each of us, which links us to the mysterious, unseen, greater world of the divine and the eternal. Experiencing this spark requires slowing down, being quiet, going inward, and paying attention to that small voice in the background that informs you only if you're ready to hear, and that voice and that spark are very shy. So too much chaos, too much noise of any kind, whether it's thoughts or traffic, make it more difficult to realize the divine spark called soul. However, as our soul, as our true self is discovered and grows, our relation to all that surrounds us is affected. Discovering our spiritual nature is the highest goal and greatest good of human evolution, as we realize our connection to all of creation. So, the synthesis, to visualize the synthesis of what I'm talking about, is a mathematical model called the Mobius strip. Do any of you know what a Mobius strip is? Oh, I've got an uncarved block here then, huh? An open mind. This model, which all it takes to create is a 10-inch by 1-inch piece of paper, which is brought together in a circle. One end is twisted 180 degrees and clamped to the other end, which creates the symbol that we know is infinity. If you trace the pathway on a Mobius strip, if you start on the outside surface, I don't have a pointer, but you can visualize that in the very white. If you start on the outside surface and follow the path of the Mobius strip, you wind up on the inside, the gray material. If you continue on the gray material, you pass under the white and you come out on the white, creating where there's suffering, there's compassion. Where there's light, there's darkness. And this inner to outer is what is another metaphor for the difference between the inner world and the outer external physical world that we humans enjoy. So as humans, at our level of evolution, we are of two worlds, the physical world and the spiritual world. The physical world is material, the visible part of the iceberg. The world that's unseen is the realm of spirit, and it sources the physical realm. And within that unseen realm, there are forces like the wind, or forces that we cannot necessarily see, but we feel, making the unseen world of spirit witnessable and tangible, and even the possibility of absolute physical results. From a health standpoint, the spiritual path increases equanimity, tranquility, joy, and you may even occasionally have a prayer answered. It decreases stress, anxiety, and depression in associated studies. So we feel better, we have more energy, we have more joy, we're more likely to do selfless service based on the influences of the unseen world. I'm sure you all recognize the two gentlemen above. I call this slide embodying spirit in action. Dr. V considered himself a Gandhiite, as I understand it, and from what I know of that, I would say that's true. Albert Einstein, as you may know, said of Gandhi, "Generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon the earth." I think the same may be said about Dr. V. Gandhi was humble, as was Dr. V, and said, "I have not the shadow of a doubt that any man or woman can achieve what I have if he or she would make the same effort and cultivate the same hope and faith." Gandhi and Dr. V taught love, truth, simplicity, and nonviolence, not as a tactic, but as a skill, as a way of thinking and a way of living. These same principles can start with us tomorrow and can be practiced daily without special clothes, equipment, or major expenditure of time. So we can season ourselves by small doses of spirituality. This very powerful couple, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother of Pondicherry, were also impactful, a powerful impact on Dr. Venkataswamy's life and spirituality. And as I was first putting this talk together, my goal had been to directly take quotes from Gandhi, Sri Aurobindo, and the Mother, and bring them forward as to how they impacted Dr. V. But the more I did that, the more I felt, no, I can't do that. What I want to do is quote Dr. V specifically so he can explain how he was influenced by these powerful gurus. So Sri Aurobindo and the Mother taught that the goal of life is not to escape from the world to some higher heaven, but to transform life on earth into divine life. Dr. V modestly said this: I live in my own superficial consciousness with its small attachments and prejudices. Even if another person has selfish motives, I must be able to place myself firmly in peace and equanimity and return love without expecting gratitude in return. So I still visit the hospital meditation room every day. When people grow into higher consciousness, they influence others. The ripple effect. That was my contribution to that quote. But you all know what that is, and so did he. Real discipline will come only when people are motivated by spiritual forces rather than materialistic forces. As I said, with my flustered start, being slightly knocked off my equilibrium, if not my feet, by the gracious introduction you all supplied. And maybe at most half of it was deserved, but I think I'm back in balance now. And Dr. V is clearly one of my heroes. His accomplishments are monumental, his global stature mythical, and he far exceeds the confines of his physical body. What I have learned from Dr. V that I never want to forget follows. 3 institutional principles. 1, compassion. No one is turned away. 2, excellence. The highest levels of safety and quality are what you practice. 3, we must be sustainable and self-reliant. We can't trust the philanthropic dollar for our patient care. Since its inception, no other eye care organization in the world comes close to AECS in volume, quality, self-sufficiency, compassion, and the limbs of love, of which, in my vocabulary, compassion is one of them. But they include such things as kindness, respect, generosity of spirit, even forgiveness, all of which are alive and well in your work. There are 3 personal principles that Dr. V lived by. Deeply held convictions devoted to self-inquiry, self-examination, and improvement. One of those was aspiration, to move in the direction of your highest purpose, always. Skillful rejection, a diligent avoidance of conditioned reactions, evil forces, such as anger, fear, jealousy, doubt, impatience, and the like. This requires seeing things, including yourself, as they truly are, where your authenticity and your integrity spring. This requires the courage to say yes or no when it is or is not the right thing to do. Even if it is uncomfortable for you to do that, it's critical to set firm boundaries of what is moral and ethical. Surrender, number 3. Actively giving one's entire being in service to goodness and love in pursuit of the inherent spirit within, but something greater than the individual, him or herself. Surrender means letting go in that context, versus how it's often interpreted in the West as giving up. But it's not giving up, it's giving in to something greater and more meaningful than your ego, your personality, or your image. When combined with these 6 principles, the 4 universal principles described by cultural anthropologist Angeles Arrien, whose expertise was in the study of indigenous cultures from all over the world, and those principles that were universally found within those cultures. So she described 4 human archetypes and 4 actions to move forward the principles that these archetypes represent. Does that make sense? I don't see any nodding, but I'm assuming, though, at least Susie's nodding. So thank you very much. So the first archetype is the leader or warrior. And just in case you wonder, those people who around you seem rebellious and hard to control, on the other side of that is the warrior leader. So all rebels are not necessarily bad, so sometimes it's worthwhile to endure them. The principle that is associated with that is showing up and being fully present, right now, right here, no place else. Now, I know in reality we're thinking about something, we're nodding off to sleep, we are not making the choice to be present now. The behavior that stimulates when you're fully present is appropriate action and timing. The second archetype is the healer. The principle of the healer is to pay attention to what has heart and meaning. Their action, the healer's action, relates to the limbs of love. So it's to respect, see the dignity of your patient, and everything from compassion to the recognition of others' suffering, which was one of Dr. V's key attributes, fits for the healer. The visionary, the principle is to tell the truth without blame or judgment. The action that stimulates is creativity and curiosity, also large in Dr. V's life. And the fourth archetype is the teacher. The principle there is to be open to outcome, not attached to outcome, and the action that stimulates is constructive communication. When we find that a door doesn't open, and our outcome, our desired outcome was to get through that door, instead of becoming troubled and angry and frustrated, if we can detach from the outcome, that does not mean we can't be committed to a particular approach. But when that door is open, we move to the next door. And Dr. V and Aravind has a great talent of translating obstructions to opportunities. So, These principles taught by Angeles Arian have been used for many years with great success by Susie in her middle school classroom and with her yoga students. And it has led to relational success of the Institute for Health and Healing in settings that were really not ready for that type of healing or that type of change or transformation. How can the legacy of Dr. V light our path and guide us? This is the place where it was important for Susie and me to bring the anthropologic viewpoint in, because there are many things to do, but they're grounded, they're in the physical world. So I'm just going to run through some of them without explaining them in depth. Angeles and indigenous cultures throughout the world start the day with the blessing way or something like it. They give gratitude, and it's our responsibility to be able to identify something for which we're grateful. They set sacred intention, which may mean a prayer, a song, a poem, a to-do list that includes compassion, generosity of spirit, the limbs of love, and to commit a life-affirming action in the direction toward your life's dream. If you don't understand what a life's dream is, it would be what Dr. V might call your aspirational goal. And Dr. V went to the meditation room on a daily basis. He asked for help to be an instrument of healing. He read from Savitri, or was read to from Savitri on a daily basis. He took time for quiet. Well, you could even take 60 seconds of quiet, and I bet you could do that 5 to 10 times a day, and no one would bother you. And it doesn't take very long for a moment of quiet to have a physiologic impact on your pulse, your breathing rate. Say a prayer before every meal, recognizing the interconnection and the interdependence of the earth, the rain, other people, the animals that share the planet with us, and the dirt that shares the planet with us. Track your thoughts, feelings, actions to stay present. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing about it? Track what is inspiring, moving, challenging, and surprising you at this time. It will give you great insight as to where your next move is. Practice acting from balance, equanimity, patience, understanding, kindness, generosity, collaboration, and trust, rather than anger, impatience, greed, jealousy, or selfishness. This is not easy work. Start slowly and with people that you can actually honestly move those feelings forward. Remember, your self-care should come first. If you're not healthy, if you're not well, you will not transfer that to your family, to your patients, to your associates. Read or study from the seers, philosophers, theologians, mystics, gurus, elders, mentors, and watch your connection to the unseen world grow. Remember, all you need is love and its limbs, and that work and selfless service are love made visible. Living our daily lives, we sometimes find ourselves overburdened, ungrounded in our professional and family obligations. There are many ways, tools, techniques to learn and practice which can aid our daily challenge to find balance and stability in our lives. And as Tagore wrote, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and learned that life was service. I served, and behold, service was joy. So everyone's path is unique. We are all unique. All snowflakes, which you don't see very often here, are hexagons, but no two are the same. All humans share many traits, but no two of us are the same. Consequently, your path to right placement, your path to right work, your path will be different. Your viewpoint will be different. Your input, your growth and development, the window you're looking out, even if we're looking at the same thing, are like the elephant story of the blind people examining the elephant, and some get the legs, and some get the tail, and some get the trunk, and they all have a different viewpoint. So appreciate that your path is going to be unique, which is why direct personal experience is so important. The Buddha thought that people who accepted secondhand information about spirituality were like being a goat herder who was not herding his own goats, but herding somebody else's goats. So be sure to herd your own goats. And Dr. V said, spirituality is not intellectual. It is a sign that a power greater than the mind is striving to emerge. Our world is much larger, interconnected, and interdependent, and of common origin than we think. Both of our human worlds deserve our attention. However, our spiritual world deserves more. So let's join Dr. V in closing on his sunlit path and listen to what he said. I always loved the quote about when we grow in spiritual consciousness, etc., but I never knew where it came from. So I looked back to see what preceded those lines of wisdom. And here's what I find, and you may be much more familiar with this than I was, and it comes out of Illuminated Spirit. Our global effort to control blindness is the will of the divine, and we pray to be made good instruments for that work. It was not out of some sort of philanthropic feeling that I did something good for people. It was more a feeling that we are one. I was not condescending to do something good for them as though I were a superior being. Rather, I felt a part of me was suffering with them. As Sri Aurobindo would explain it, spiritually you feel happy that you are no longer left inside your small, narrow ego and limited to concern only about your own life and your own family, but something bigger. We cannot expect everyone to become spiritual, just as we cannot expect everyone to be a scientist or a surgeon. At Aravind, we are deeply interested in getting people to pursue spiritual practices. We have to provide opportunities, facilities, and help for people inclined to spiritual experience. The hospitals demonstrate that eyesight can be restored to all people, irrespective of social or economic status, if we combine modern technology and management with spiritual practice. Here's the punch. When we grow in spiritual consciousness, we identify ourselves with all that is in the world. Then there is no exploitation. It is ourselves we are helping. It is ourselves we are healing. May you all be grateful for and blessed by your service in the world and the joy of your spiritual discovery. Thank you from me and from Susie for this recognition.